Hi everyone, here's Hussam with you from Giuliani Associates Architects. We are a new episode about 3D Studio Max. Today we're gonna talk about the material. It's a very important topic, so please be with us, and we will put kind of way so you can interact with us, and maybe you send us a question and we can answer it later on in another video. So let's start first talking about the material in 3D Studio Max. Okay, so in 3D Studio Max, usually when you want to go to the material editor, and what I called it, it's a kitchen of the material. Okay, so when you want to prepare anything, you go to the kitchen, you start, preparing the gradients, and then you start cooking, right? It's the same thing in 3D Studio Max. When you finish the modeling, then you want to start, rendering. Before that, you have to prepare your material. So the same thing. So to get to the material editor, you have to press M on the keyboard, and that will bring the windows of the material. Okay, or you can get to that from the toolbars, and if you click on this icon over here, you can see the material editor. Okay, since 2013, or actually 2014, they came up with something new called slit material. So if you press and hold on the library material over here, you see two icons. The first one, which was called the standard basic material editor, which is this one, and the second one is going to be the slit material, which is this one here. Okay, and this is basically because too many users, they transfer from Maya or another 3D software, which is basically using the nodes strategy to creating the material for their own work, which is, to be honest, it's really helpful to let people know where they are, because when you build the material, you actually lose what stage you are in. Okay, so this kind of give you a maps. Okay, it give you like where you are in here. So if I want to create a material, I just go here, and then I just said standard one, and then from here I can create the color, So it's node-based. It's node-based material editor, and it's helped you to understand how that material was built. Okay, so this is the slit material editor over here. So let's start with the basic one first, which is this one. And before that, I want to talk a little bit about the difference between maps or textures and shader. You have to know the difference, because people, they confuse about those two terms all the time, and start asking question, what is the difference between shaders and maps or texture. Okay, to explain that, let's go in here and let's talk about this. So when you have your 3D model and you're done with it, you want to create the material. For this one, for example, we have a wood, we have a glass, we have kind of metal, we have grass and stone and so on. Okay, so the picture itself, how the material looks like, this is called texture, which is basically an image that you apply to the surface. Okay, but putting just the image on top of the surface is not really the material, right? Because you need to know the properties of those materials. Are they rough? Are they reflected? Are they has a lot of reflection, and so on, So for example, if we look at the next image over here, it would tell us about the shader more. See the shader, how they are different, even if you have the same texture or the same color, but they looks different, right? So each one of those material which has the gray color on top of it, they have a different properties, and that means different shader. So the shader is the properties of the material. So when you apply an image on top of the material, you have to play around with the parameters to get the result that it's really tell us what kind of material we have or what kind of shader do we have. Okay, so this is just very quick, things to know about the material before we jump to the material editor. So as an introduction to the material, we have to know what we are dealing with. So the standard material, actually, it's the type of the material you want to create, which is basically it's linked to what render engine you use. For example, right now, if we go to rendering setting over here, you notice the renders is a scan line. So it means it's the default render engine in 3D Studio Max. But if you have V-Ray, for example, you have to use a different material. Right now we're using scan line, which is probably all the time we're using standard material. So the type of the material always is standard. Okay, that makes sense? Okay, so if we're using, for example, mentor ray, this one here, okay, we have to use something called arc design material. So if we click on here, we have to go here to arc and design, and we hit OK. And this will work better with the mentor ray. And you notice it's the mentor ray arc and design. Okay. So the people ask, what is the difference between those? Yes. The difference is when you're using a different engine, it will link it to those properties. So it can read, it's kind of mathematic equation. So mentor ray, it reads better the arc and design. You can work with the standard with mentor ray, but you will not get the realistic result that you're looking for. Those really built together. V-Ray as well, it's built together with the V-Ray material, because right now I don't have V-Ray installed, so I will see this kind of a black material editor. But if I go to scan line, again I can see the scan line standard material over here. So standard material, that means I'm using scan line rendering it, and so on. Okay, so this is the first thing you want to know. So like I said, this is the kitchen of the material. You have 6 samples over here where you build your material. Okay, so even if you have your building done, you have to create all the materials and make them ready to go, and then apply them one by one and then modify them. Okay, by scale, but whatever you want to do with it. Okay, so the first one, it's the name of it. If I hover over it, it's called 02 default, which is the same name as here. My advice to you guys, when you want to start creating material, you have to rename them right away. For example, if I have this for the ground, I have to set ground over here and hit enter, and that will make the first slot of the material called the ground. Okay, so for example, if I have this plane over here, I can just drag and drop this material on top of it, and then I have the ground material ready to go. Okay, so you notice if I hover on top of it, it's called ground. And you notice like there is 4 white triangle corners, and it's like, it's kind of show me this material is applied to what I selected. If I deselect this, you notice those corners turn to gray, which is mean I'm not selecting this material specifically, right? If I select the plane, again, they will light up like this. If I deselect it, they will be grayed like this. But those 4 corners, it means this material, it's already assigned to the whole scene. So for example, if I have this box over here, you still see one material here, right? But if I take this one and apply it to the box, right now you have two material with the gray corners, okay? That means both of them apply to the whole scene, but then if I select the box, that will tells me this material applied to the selection. If I select the plane, the four corner highlighted, it means I select the material for that object specifically, okay? So this is very quick tip. Okay, so this is the ground. I called it whatever I want, okay? And then from here, I can assign the material to selection, or I can just drag and drop on top of the object like this. And that will assign the material right away, okay? Next to it, where the standard material here, if I click on this, it will show me all the material that I can use on my scene. If I have a V-Ray, it will show V-Ray material underneath it here. But right now, we have a standard with what we mostly use, and you can use you know, a different kind of material, like architectures, which is work with the mental ray, you know, and so on. So this list, it show you just the text. This one, it would show you a sample of those material, and so on. This one show you just the sample. This one show you bigger sample, so you can decide which one you want to go with. So mostly if we're using just the regular rendering, the default one, we go with the standard and we hit OK. So as you can notice here, that's the standard material. Okay, okay. So what is the other thing that we have to deal with in this material editor? We'll leave these for now. So the main thing is the color. What is the color of the material? Right now, it's by default is the gray. So the ambient, if I double click on it, it will take me to the color windows, where I can select what color I need for this, you know, like this is the color, and hit OK, and then it automatically will apply to the object, as you can see. But what is the difference between those three, you know, color over here? The ambient, diffuse, and the specular. Okay, so to explain this more, if we go back to this image, so the diffuse, it means the whole color over here, the whole thing, okay? The next one, which is the ambient, which is mean the color in the dark area, like this one here. Okay, so it usually is the same color, but because of the lighting, it will show you more darker color. And then the specular, which is mean where the light hit the surface, which is basically the white area over here. Sometimes you wanna say, okay, I have a different color in the specular because the light is, you know, blue or whatever. So you turn this to blue, you know what I mean? And that will give you a blue a specular on top of the surface. Okay, so this is the difference between those three things, and then you can link them. Usually the ambient and diffuse the same color, that's why you see this linked all the time, and then the specular, it's always unlinked, but you can link it as well if you need the same thing. Okay, the shader type. What is the shader type? The shader type, if we go back in here, okay, this is the plain one, which is this type of the material. And then if you want to turn it to metal, whatever, you know, type of shader you want to start with. If you want to start with the plane, and you can actually turn the plane to the metal or whatever you need, but it needs more experience. So this is basically to make it easy for the beginners to start building their shader, okay? But honestly, usually I'm just using a plane, and then I just play around with those setting, and voila, I have my result. And this is what tells you more about what is the difference. This is Vong, this is plane, Interscope, Fonge, and Lambert. So these show you what kind of reflection. See how this is like very smooth, this is hard reflection, this is linear reflection, and so on, you know. So this tells you what is the difference between those kind of basic material. Honestly, all the time I'm using plane and I can get whatever I want. Okay, the next thing is the self-illumination. It's really a very nice option over here. So for example, if you have this sphere over here and you want to make it like source of light, okay, so you apply a new material to it, assign the material, maybe you want to make it like white, and then you can give it self-illumination. That will make it illuminate, you know. Not only the object itself will illuminate, but even the surface around it, it will get some light from it. Okay, so this is just really very quick overview for the material library and how we can use, you know, and what does mean the material, creating a material inside 3D Studio Max. And next episode we're gonna talk about the shader types and how we can actually modify the specification of the material to get the realistic look. Thank you so much for watching us, and next episode is going to be about the shader of the material. Thank you so much. Have a good one.